did, but obviously looking back at things and really reflecting on what happened, what was happening, that's not love at all.
Let's start with the most basic question here, because it needs to be asked. How do you fall in love with a married man in the first place? Seriously, how does that happen? This man has a wife, he has a family, and somewhere along the way, you made a conscious decision to involve yourself in that situation anyway. That's not a love story, that's an affair. And the person sitting in the middle of it isn't a victim, she's a willing participant. That person is Paige Shyiver, a 32-year-old woman who carried on an affair with a married head coach at the University of Michigan. Now, the man at the center of this, Sherrone, was already exposed. He went from offensive line coach to offensive coordinator and eventually landed the biggest opportunity of his career when he was elevated to head coach at Michigan. But it appears that throughout much of his time there, rather than focusing on the responsibility he'd been handed, he was deeply involved with Paige Shyiver. His wife at home didn't matter. His kids didn't matter. His career didn't matter, at least not enough to stop what was happening. And eventually, it all came crashing down. His behavior cost him his job at the university. He reportedly reached a point where he nearly took his own life. His wife, remarkably, chose to stay. He was handed 18 months of probation, and now, in the aftermath of all of it, his mistress has found her way onto Good Morning America, sitting in front of a camera, attempting to frame herself as the wronged party in a situation she chose to walk into with both eyes open. She was a grown woman. She knew he was married. She knew he had children. His family wasn't some hidden secret. It was right there. And by her own account, she didn't want to be the side piece. She wanted him to leave his wife for her. When that didn't happen, suddenly everyone else is to blame. According to her account, Paige Shyiver says she was working as an intern back in 2022 when she and Sherrone, who was the offensive coordinator at the time and a married father, entered into what she describes as a consensual, intimate relationship. When Moore was promoted to head coach in 2024, she was brought on as his executive assistant.
To have the relationship in order to have job security?
Yes, I did.
And now, here she is on national television talking about feeling pressured. But let's be honest about what that really was. That wasn't pressure. That was her own desire, her own choices, and her own decision-making playing out over an extended period of time. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a years-long affair that she actively continued, fully aware that he had a wife and children at home. Nobody dragged her into this. She pursued it. She kept it going. That was a personal decision made repeatedly, not once. Now, to be fair, the coach was absolutely wrong. There's no argument there. He was a married man in a position of authority, and his behavior was a betrayal of his family and his profession. That part is not up for debate. But here is what doesn't work: using his wrongdoing as a shield for her own. The fact that he was wrong doesn't erase her role in this. Two people made this situation what it was, and accountability doesn't just land on one of them because it's more convenient that way. She made a choice. She kept making that choice. And now, instead of owning that, she's sitting across from a morning show host trying to rewrite the narrative. That's the part that doesn't sit right.
I mean, he and other coaches had control over my career, especially him. I mean, he could fire me in a second.
Shyiver describes her efforts to leave the turbulent on and off relationship as an uphill battle, one she says was repeatedly undermined by manipulation, including threats of self-harm used as a tool to pull her back in.
I tried to pull away. He always had a story, always had a way to pull me in and making me feel that I couldn't leave him because he was so miserable without me.
The irony is that in that moment, she believed she was only exposing something about him, but without realizing it,
she revealed just as much about herself. Because what kind of person genuinely takes the word of a married man at face value? What came to light wasn't just his behavior. It was her own deep need for attention, validation, and the feeling of being chosen over another woman. There was something about his apparent weakness that made her feel powerful, like she was more essential to someone's life than even his own wife and children. Suppose you were willing to believe that in the first place. That says something about where you are, too. During their years-long relationship, Shyiver discovered she was pregnant with Moore's child. But the pregnancy came with an added layer of heartbreak. She was also dealing with MPMA disorder, a genetic disorder that progressively weakens muscle function. And then her doctors delivered news that made everything even harder.
Experts told me that it wouldn't be right or healthy for me to keep the baby.
Did you want to?
Getting pregnant by a married man raises serious questions that deserve honest answers. Not about pressure or circumstance, but about choice. Because at some point, a decision was made, and with that decision came consequences that would tie two lives together permanently, regardless of what either party wanted down the road. The real question isn't just what happened, it's why. Why would someone willingly create that kind of bond with a man who already had a family and a wife at home? That's the question that lingers. On December 10th of last year, Shyiver made a decision that would change everything. She went to the university and reported the truth about her affair with Moore. The institution acted swiftly. Moore was terminated following that conversation. But what happened next was alarming. Shyiver says that less than an hour after she made that report, Moore showed up at her apartment.
I hear footsteps and they're getting closer and louder, and I'm like, crap. And so I run to my door to try to lock it. He barges in and he's standing like this close to me.
So, after reporting the affair to the university, Shyiver says Moore showed up at her apartment. And here's the detail that raises eyebrows. She admits the door was unlocked, not because she was expecting trouble, but simply because she hadn't locked it yet. It wasn't until she heard footsteps that the reality of the situation hit her. A man who had just lost his career was now standing outside her door, less than an hour after she made that call. As for Moore, no external force pushed him down this path. He made that choice himself. He already had a wife and children at home. He had a professional position and a reputation to protect. And yet he chose to pursue a relationship that crossed every boundary imaginable. Whatever consequences followed were a direct result of decisions he made long before that December afternoon. Nobody handed him that situation. He walked into it willingly.
And then I start backing up and he starts following me.
Did you fear for your life?
Oh my gosh, yes. I
Did
mean,
he-
he's 6'4" and he comes in with his hood up, looking down at me, saying I ruined his life, crying, and it's like, and then starts coming at me, and I tell him to leave, that he's not supposed to be here. He's not listening to me. And then he starts grabbing, yes, butter knives.
You had no right to do what you did.
When the case finally reached a courtroom, Moore was sentenced to 18 months of probation on misdemeanor charges of trespassing and malicious use of a phone. A plea deal had been negotiated, and as part of that agreement, the more serious charges against him, including home invasion, were dismissed.
Into jail?
Yes. I think he should have gotten more punishment for what he did.
In an official statement, Chiron Moore's attorney indicated that Moore considers this matter closed and is moving forward. Meanwhile, Shyiver has made an additional claim that goes beyond the affair itself, alleging that some of her former colleagues, including people in leadership positions at the university, had knowledge of the relationship while it was happening.
The university had a moral obligation to come to you sooner.
Yes, he controlled everything that was going on in my life, and they didn't do anything about it.
Why though? You lying. Why you always lying? Oh my God. Stop fucking lying.
But that claim deserves a closer look, because the record tells a different story. The university didn't ignore her report. They acted on it the very next day, terminating Moore swiftly and decisively. That's precisely what sent him to her apartment in the first place. He had just lost his job, and he knew exactly why. So the idea that leadership turned a blind eye doesn't quite line up with what actually happened. In fact, the University of Michigan released a statement confirming that it acted promptly to terminate Moore and reaffirmed its commitment to maintaining a professional and respectful environment for everyone in its community. As for Shiver's stated reason for coming forward, that she wants to help other women, that explanation raises its own questions, because the fuller picture here is one of a consensual relationship that lasted several years, one that began before Moore even became head coach, and one in which she chose to have his child. If the goal is truly to protect women, then it's worth asking, what about his wife? She's a woman too, and she was the one who had no say in any of this.
I just want, other women that are going through this to know that this doesn't need to happen. It doesn't need to go this far.
She's no longer working at the university, despite the university promptly firing Moore when she reported the affair back in December. Her attorneys say that they want the university to commit to taking accountability for what happened to their client. I'll have more of my interview tonight on ABC News Live Prime and also Nightline. Okay.
When you look at the bigger picture, the true purpose of this interview becomes harder to ignore. Going public with a story like this, framed around sympathy and institutional failure, is a calculated move, one that appears to design to build enough public pressure to push the university toward a financial settlement. If the real message was meant to help other women, it would sound a lot more like this. Don't pursue relationships with married men, because no matter how it starts, it rarely ends well, and the person who suffers most is often the one who thought she had something to gain. What she didn't fully consider is that throughout all of this, she was quietly dismantling her own life, and the public seems to see that clearly. The reaction online has been overwhelmingly unsympathetic. Comments flooded in from people who weren't moved by the emotional delivery of the interview. One viewer wrote that playing stupid games leads to stupid prizes. Another pointed out that she was nearly 30 years old when this relationship began, hardly someone who didn't know better. A third commenter noted that while they support protecting women, she entered this situation as a fully informed adult, and calling herself a victim doesn't hold up. Someone else raised a pointed question: why didn't she come forward sooner? Especially considering that leaders within the athletic department questioned her multiple times in the year leading up to Moore's termination, asking directly whether something was going on. She denied it every time. Stepping into a victim role now strikes many as inconsistent at best. Other reactions were just as direct. One person said there's no sympathy available for someone who knowingly gets involved with a married man. Another predicted the interview wouldn't age well. Someone else noted simply that you can't claim an institution did nothing when they fired the man within a day of being informed. And perhaps the most concise reaction of all, just 2 words, said everything that needed to be said. At the end of the day, 2 adults made choices. Those choices came with consequences. He is already facing his. And accountability, in one form or another, has a way of finding everyone involved. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This is a conversation worth having.